We are live. We get live, we can start, so you know.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning to this online seminar organized by the ARSINOE project, which is European Union Horizon 2020 funded project. This is an online seminar that we organize every 3 months in order to support the capacity of the ARSINOE and the sister projects of ARSINOE to create the synergies, to cluster, to network, to better support the capacity of the project to create awareness, to create the synergies, to share the knowledge of the projects, and this in order to support the overall achievement of a water smart society. Particularly the ARSINOE project, which is, as I said, an EU-funded initiative, wants to foster climate resilient regions through systemic solutions and innovative approach. And today you can see from the title, Water Smart Cities, Navigating Climate Resilient, Sustainable Urbanization in the Digital Age, as an important meaning in the view of fostering climate resilient regions, because as we know, our era since years now and the forecast will not change. For the next decades, there is. We can see there is a rapid urbanization of not only the European Union areas, but Europe, beyond Europe, that creates growing challenges that are related to the utilization and availability of resources. And we focus today on water resources, but at the same time we have to say that new challenges that can be find in order to address the problems and the challenge of the growing of the population, the rapid urbanization. But at the same time, we see that smart cities or smart water cities can really be an example of innovation and sustainability in the long run, when it comes to identify those solutions, those systemic solutions that can help us in addressing the challenge of water management in this urban environment, in order to optimize the utilization of this not endless resource, which is water, for which we already know that in the past few years, the problems related to water scarcity due to climate change, where we can say that the water crisis is a climate crisis and vice versa. But this, it is important to look at water smart cities as an example of emblematic example where water resources can be better managed in a circular view, in a circular economy perspective, and where we can really minimize the volume of wastewater and reduce the environmental impact of the anthropogenic activities. So today we host all the sister projects of connected to the ARSINOE project, and to say that we have the ARSINOE, the TransformAr, the Impetus project, together with this in this webinar, talking about different experience coming from the activities that the project are running, and from the knowledge and the experience of the speakers. We have a keynote that will open this webinar. The keynote, it is from Arnout Ruelens. Arnout is on top, from our side, from the Water Europe side, is the leader of the regional leadership teams on water smart cities, but then he coordinates in the city of Mechelen the neutral climate activities and initiative within the municipality. And I'd like also to highlight that the city of Mechelen is an important and appreciated member not only of Water Europe, but also an important member of the EU-funded partnership Water for All, which aims at aligning the water research agendas in Europe and beyond Europe, and particularly concerning the activities of Water Europe to support the achievement of a water smart society through the demonstration of innovation utilizing the models of the Water Rental Living Lab. So once again, our focus is on the territories. So now I really pleased to give you the floor and starting in your presentation about water smart cities, learning from 3 local pilots. And last recommendation, I just ask the speaker to keep the time. And another recommendation it is to the audience, whoever is following this webinar, through Zoom, to the platform, is very much welcome, and to address questions, on the chat. Otherwise, who is following up through the social media, just, raise your question, and we'll try our best, to give you an answer during the webinar. Thank you so much. Thank you, Arnout. The floor is yours. We cannot hear you.
So this would be better, I think. Yes. Thank you, Andrea, for the lovely introduction. Also from our part, we are very happy to be here and to be member of the Water Europe and the Water for All initiative, because I think one of the key learnings, and will come at the end of the presentation, is that we need to share our information and our way of doing things. Every European projects meetings we have, every network meeting, we very often stumble into, as a city, we are facing very similar challenges, and there is a lot of solutions available, and we have to learn from each other. And this is why we, as a city of Mechelen, are very happy to be member of the VLT Water Smart Cities, because together with my colleagues from across Europe, from across different sectors, David, Armando, and Elisabette, our mission is to really, departing from this vision on what is a water smart city, is to collect good examples, to make this inventory and to inspire. And we are very happy to do this as people coming from the sector and coming from the field. I, as a local climate policy coordinator, I know what works in cities. We have to move beyond the gimmick or the gadget or that type of solutions, but look into what is it really changing on the terrain. So this is a small introduction on the VLT, which we're very happy to head. And if you have any more questions on that, do not hesitate to ask it. Okay, for today, so we have 20 minutes. I start with the definition. From the definition, it will be very clear that it's a data, information, and action game, and then some challenges, because I think we're in a field that we have as many challenges as solutions today. Okay, so from the definition, as a modern era player, we have to see that the first thing we see is climate change. It is everywhere. Every presentation I give today, I ask to people, where did you go on holiday? And did you see climate change? And almost everyone tells me, yes, we saw climate change. We saw drought, we saw floodings, we saw forest fires, we saw heat. In our city, we see these things. Forest fires less because there's not so many forests, but we see these effects happening every year, even more intense. But it's not only climate change, it's about what climate change has an impact on our buildings, on our people, and especially in an urban setting. Heat is something that we can't get rid of. There's so much heat locked into our city that we can't ventilate it, that is locked in the buildings and in the streets, that in the night it will become very difficult to sleep. But you see the floodings of buildings. Even in some parts of Flanders, we have stability issues because of the soil drying out differently. So it has a huge impact on our societies. And from a water perspective, I think, therefore, a good solution is the water smart cities. So, and this is what I wanted to say as a modern era player. The first thing we did was look at what is a water smart city. We asked ChatGPT. ChatGPT knows everything, so we asked ChatGPT. So this is the definition. It gave it to me in less than 5 seconds, I think. You can read it there. I think it's a good definition, but the problem is it focuses on one side. It focuses on infrastructure. It focuses on providing water and has a very technological point of view. Therefore, we are much more likely of the definition of the water smart society that is put forward by Water Europe. Because I think if you use this definition, we will come into cases that very often speak to the imagination of a water smart city, but it's much more. Then we come into cases, for example, as the smart water meters for drinking water. I think they're very good tools to see how much we're using, to reduce consumption, to see if there's leakage. These are the obvious solutions that you would think of if you're looking at water smart city, or models for forecasting floods and for preventing floods, looking where there will be floods, or even within the 3 hours telling you, okay, there's going to be a flood in this street. I think these are the things that we typically would think of as a water smart city solution. And they're good solutions, but there's much more. Another example here where we look into, can we model rainwater storage units so that if there's a storm coming, that we can empty them, that we have extra buffer capacity to get rainwater in. These are the obvious water smart city solutions that are out there, and they're good solutions, but I think water smart city is much more than this. And therefore, as said, it's the water smart society definition that we adhere, that looks much broader than this technology view on smartness. It's about circularity, connecting the circle, recognizing the true value of water, looking at resilience for climate change. And I think this is often overlooked if we're looking on a technological way of managing water. It's about governance. It's about involving everyone. As a city, we're used to, or as a government, looking at top-down solutions. We're going to make a huge grid for water network, and we are going to manage it centrally. We're the only ones here involved, but it doesn't work that way in the future. And especially there, the technology helps in having better or new governance models. And last in this definition question, so it's much more than technology. It's a broader perspective, and we as a VLT, Water Smart Cities, we believe that the city has the unique scale to do these type of things. I very often like to say the city is small enough or local enough to do things, to really act, but it's big enough to be ambitious and to have a vision. So the city is a unique scale, even small cities or large cities, it's a unique scale, and it's the front office of government. This is the government people see, this is the government people are in contact with. And we have these specific urban challenges, of course, as I said, heat, the flooding, the high pavement rate. But we as a city, we can think beyond the boundaries of different government layers, but therefore we need a common language. You need to speak in the same way, and their smartness helps us in speaking in the same way. And we run the public domain, we run the streets, we run the squares, we run the parks, and a lot of the climate change issues can be solved in this public domain. And we are the front office for government, so we can also access or stimulate everything that's happening in the private areas. We can promote there, we can help them, we can inspire them. So I think as a city, we're in a unique place between the high, ambitious European national climate plans and connecting with the people. So if I think about smartness, very often the first step is data. It's about collecting data, both on modeling. I think maybe this one is better first. Modeling how many heat waves or heat days will we have? How long will the drought take? So we have a good insight, a good data insight in, or good data points on what is local climate change, even more specific on Internet of Things. So we have even real-time data collection. These are two examples together with citizens, together with schools, where we do Internet of Things data collection with, for example, the picture with the solar panel is a small-scale weather station together with the university that is set up to have these measurements every 15 minutes. It sends its data through. The other one is where we look into the temperature of the soil to see how drought is hitting the soil. So this is the Internet of Things data collection, and then at the 24 hour, you see the stations send every 24 hours, they send their data. An interesting thing here is to see that we have, especially in the summer, we can see, for example, the urban heat island effect. Very good, very clear. We have one outside the city, one inside the city, but also for precipitation, these type of things, we get very, very good data. We get good data from Flanders on our climate is changing, how many heat days there will be, etc. The problem with data is there is so many data. I mean, we have platforms filled with data. We have data warehouses on every level, on yearly data, 15-minute data. We have data mobility, data on energy, data on water levels. So there's data all over the place. As a city, our challenge is, how can we be smart with this data? How can we change this data into information, do something with these data points. And there is a good example here. For example, for a street that has been redesigned, okay, what does it mean for the street heat? How many heat stress is there actually in the street, and is there inside the homes of people? Where will be the floodings, and how deep will be the floodings? How many vulnerable institutions are there in our territory? Will they be flooded or not? Will they be impacted by heat waves? Where is the heat? As I said, it's very clearly here that it's in the urban area. To get good information, this is the first step on acting on this data. I think the monitoring the data is very important, but it's what are we going to do with this data? Therefore, we require information. Information that we use in policy planning. Look at, okay, for 2050, how are we going to implement different actions? Because that is the step, and this is the most important step, and that is the one where we as a city are, I think one of the better players is, okay, good. We know what to do. We know where the problem is, thanks to data that we change into information. What type of actions can we take? Action that can be urban planning. A good spatial planning is key to most of the climate challenges. Where are we going to let the city grow? Where are we going to give space for water and greening? How is our infrastructure linked to this? Based on climate adaptation, where is the space for water and green and blue recreation? How can we integrate this in our spatial planning? And I think this is an element that is more and more coming into play. How is our emergency planning happening? Where do we expect that we will have this type of climate change impacts? And are we ready? Do we have the correct emergency planning in place? Is there enough interaction between the different actors? So I think urban planning is the first where we can really act with this information based on the data. But urban planning, I think I missed an end there. For example, okay, where do we need new parks, new nature? Where do we need to reinforce the biodiversity? How can we reinforce it? Where are the green spots that are connected? And also there, I think this is a new thing that is happening. It's also about knowing factually what is happening, but also bringing this information to the people. So we have a new project in the European Bauhaus. It's called What's Ups. It brings in the voice of nature, for example. So I think the good urban planning is the first step in using this information, but then it's also about doing. And we can't keep on talking and thinking and reflecting and getting good data and information. It's about changing cities. It's about changing parking lots into new spaces for water, into new parks, into new green and blue recreational areas. It's about small things, but many small things make a difference. Getting the water into the planted areas instead of into the waterways, or even worse, into the sewage. It's about, oh, so this one is the same. It's about streets, working together with people in those streets in making them green. There's a few examples there of cities across Europe that show that there's a lot of potential there in greening. And there we also use the smart approach. I think it's about creation of value, but also looking in measuring before and after. How is the water going in these areas? Do we have less water running through the sewage in these streets? So it's before and after measurement is important there, and it's getting everybody involved. I think, and that was talking about governance. This is not a problem of the government. This is a problem of a society. And we need to get everybody involved. And I think smart technology can help in making it more visual, but it's also about storytelling and activating people to get them going on green and blue infrastructure, to get them going on climate. And also reinforcing, because urban doesn't stop at the end of the urban area. We're connected to the larger landscape. We need to connect with the wetlands. We need to connect with the natural areas around the city, and to help us understand how these help our cities. It's another example of making a street and seeing how, with different modeling and different data, how the street can be made better on an adaptation level. It gives very simple adaptation scores on heat, on flooding, on drought. If we put in these measures, how will the street will be better prepared for the changing climate? So I got to hope in this very short span of time, I got to you a few ideas about, it's much more than technology. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of valuing water in a circular way also. It's a way of doing evidence-based policy. And I think this is a key word I haven't mentioned yet. Water has always been, or at least as much as possible, looked into how can we do this in an evidence-based way, in a scientific way, but we need to do this even more. And I think climate change, we can't afford to guess our way around. And maybe this would be a good thing, or maybe that would be a good thing. No, we need to do it in an evidence-based way. We need to research it and know what is working and what isn't, even on a local scale. But then there's still the challenges. And I think because I was now very much focused on adaptation, because it's the impact of climate change, how are we going to adapt to the changing climate. But here it is also about smart thinking that is integral thinking. It doesn't stop at, okay, heat, drought, floodings. No, it has to be integrated with the vision on our mitigation plan, on our circular economy plan. How are we going to wake away for a new society that is fossil-free, that is ready for the climate change and that is circular? What I very often see, even today still in projects, is that smart, when it is narrowed down to technology, it becomes an end in itself. We need to collect data and then get this data going. I think there's something to be said, because if you have the data, sometimes you see solutions that you haven't saw before, but very often it stops at, okay, now we have the data collection, we're not really doing anything with it, and then the project ends with not really having changed anything. We need to remember the smart, or the technology side of is a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. The end is, it supports evidence-based policy. You need smart people. The machine, I saw you in the beginning, I gave you the definition of ChatGPT. The machine doesn't know everything. You need good people to change data into information, into evidence-based action. And I think this will be the way of the future. It's here to stay. We need to move beyond the pilots. Very often we're still in the pilot phase. Some data collection here, maybe some sensoring information, some IoT. No, how can we make this structural? How can we have a network going that will be there still in a few years? And look around. And as I said from the beginning, from the Vision Leadership Team, this is our role, is having an atlas of water-oriented living labs, having an atlas of good solutions, stop reinventing the wheel, because we are very often reinventing the wheel. Collaborate with private partners. As a government, there's always something that is a little bit icky sometimes, collaboration with private partners, but there's a lot out there that they already have and that is really good. The governance, as I said, and sometimes we have to accept that it can be a messy process. We very often think, and I present it as a logic step, made from data, information, policy plans, and actions. It's a logic, but it's not always this linear. You go back, you go forward. And then the big question, I think very often, and probably a lot of people will be very curious about this, because it's a new big thing, artificial intelligence. We see the first few, as I always already started with ChatGPT, we see the first few examples there, but I think if we see what it's already capable of, we need to be open for the artificial intelligence without taking the risks out of account, and learn from other sectors. I mean, with the water invoice, for example, we have this example from energy. We're doing invoicing. We're looking at, can we make it more smart? Can we change it when you take energy, that it will be more or less expensive? It's based on what the grid needs. The energy market is working. I think, for example, for drinking water market or even sewage, there's a lot of learnings to be taken from other sectors, and we can't afford to make the same mistakes. We have to go faster, because it's happening at a pace we haven't imagined. It's going faster than our IPCC calculations said, so we have to go really, really fast. Okay, so I think I went maybe 3 minutes over, but I want to end with this slide. I think in this, very often people, and as a city, we see these people think, what is Europe doing for me? How is Europe in my life? But we can, with very much degree of certainty or a lot of confidence, say that this presentation, this way of thinking, and this smart city, water smart city approach would not have been possible without European projects. The water for all project that we mentioned, another live project that we have on renewing wetlands or making them wet again. So the union is here really an essential driver for innovation that we need. So I would like to thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate.
Thank you a lot. There was a really a wide overview, starting from, I mean, the city challenges, but going well beyond that. And I liked, I mean, this matter that really we need to go beyond the pilots and the demo, and I mean, data going to information, becoming then, I mean, real action in the field, and looking at the other sectors as well, because I mean, we do not live, I mean, in an insulated world. I mean, there is a planet around us, I mean, and around the water and within the water. And this, I mean, I think it's an important bridge, because now the next speaker will be Gernot Braun, who is managing director of the Bavarian office of AMVKDU, which is an ARSINOE partner. So I mean, now it's the time for ARSINOE to take the floor. It's interesting because Gernot possesses, I mean, more than 10 years of experience with local public utilities, with backgrounds, I mean, in municipal utilities. I mean, he navigates well, I mean, through these difficult waves, I mean, of water, energy, and telecommunication sectors, which are the three pillars of stability of our society. We learned well this, I mean, during the COVID, and is also involved in quite an interesting project within the Interreg Alpine space. The project is the Alp Grids. Now, the title of the presentation of the intervention of Gernot is "Let's Scale Up Synergies of Public Services Infrastructures." And I think this, I mean, really well connected, I mean, to the keynote of Arnout. And well, Gernot, you are welcome to take the floor and give us your insights. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and I'm happy to be here. It's great to see the knowledge of the different projects shared in one session, and I'm sharing my screen here to show you a few slides on just that topic, how to integrate solutions within the different infrastructures. I hope this is now on the big screen. Yes. We are an association of municipal supply companies, and those local public utilities have been there for 150 years, but they're also founded throughout the last few years, and they include all infrastructures from water to energy, but also telecommunication. We're always linked to the region. We are, as such, a natural born partner in ARSINOE, and I was really glad when Professor Ralph Ludwig invited us to join 2 or 3 years ago. Our companies have been there so long, and as they are owned by the municipalities, they are reliable and future-orientated since cities have been around and will be around for a while. And that's a task that has to be solved sustainably. Of course, we've been part of fossil energy infrastructure and all that in the past too, but things are changing fast. And that's part of the story I want to tell you on all these issues: energy, water, sewage treatment, waste management, mobility as part of our companies, but also smart city solutions already. And the basis for all that, as we've learned from the presentation before, is good communication of broadband and what I'll show you, LoRaWAN, low-range wireless access networks. They help tremendously. So let's look at energy and water connections, and then a short, brief look at those solutions in digital approaches. If you think about energy and water, it might be power plants using water for cooling or something, but I think we have to think broader here and realize that energy efficiency measures already solve part of our water discussions. If we do insulation, if we use excessive heat from sewage plants, for example, but also future electrolyzers for hydrogen production, if we use natural cooling, we need fewer power generation sites. We need fewer storage systems. And as such, we'll ask for less space out in the countryside, and there'll be less competition on areas where either energy production or water security can be approached, certainly necessary in climate change. And these solutions can already be found if you look at PV power plants that do some reduce the intensiveness of agriculture, for example, and soils can be secured for longer. The water that runs down there has less nitrogen and nitrate in it. And the same thing works on water with the plants that you grow. But the sewage treatment, for example, or just within a building, solving the energy that is in the wastewater reduces the energy needs as well. And at the end, the water protection areas out there are not under such a lot pressure for setting up renewable power plants, which of course we need, and we still spread out and have to grow. But if you take into account the demand reduced by energy efficiency, that's part of the solution for water questions too. And inside of the cities, all that infrastructure we're building, from heat, electricity, gas, water, and sewage as well, but also telecommunication, is somewhere underground. And I very much like that picture on the right-hand side here, because it gives you an idea of what's down there. But if we think about blue and green infrastructure in the cities, and we've heard that before too, if you want to open up the ground to plant a tree, you usually find some infrastructure, certainly in densely settled areas. And that needs to be solved too. For that, our municipal companies with all of those infrastructures, often in one hand or in 2 or 3 companies within the city, can help a lot if you have those discussions internally before going public, and maybe have difficult discussions on that. But trying to keep the time, let me just go to a last point. And I've mentioned the low-range wireless access networks before. We've heard from Andrea, from Arnaut about the sensors that help to get a true picture of what's happening out there, for example, in a heat map like up on the right here. But also when floodings are a matter, we have a lot of storage of rain, of strong rains out there in the countryside already. But if there's no measurement in real time, you might not know when the water gets down to a town or city below. So if you have sensors in there and a low-range wireless access network, you have much better information. And I'm currently looking for ways to include that kind of infrastructure into one of the models we're using in ARSINOE on predicting cascades in critical infrastructure services and when they fail. So if we set up this smart city with all the parts that have been mentioned before, we're probably safer in the end and able to calculate and maybe even real time look at cascades in case of catastrophes. This is a brief look at what we're doing, at what we're thinking about. It's not the whole story, of course. We've been working on the living labs in ARSINOE. We're trying to look at climate services in detail. We had a workshop last week, but just to give a short introduction to what we're doing and an idea on smart cities and our contribution to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I mean, crystal clear, and not that easy. I mean, to have a holistic approach and a systemic view. I mean, in the management of resources, but at the same time, I think that's this is urgent. I mean, for all of us. I mean, for the scientific innovation community, I mean, for the people, for who is in charge of taking the decision, I mean, to be supported and be also enabled, I mean, to have, I mean, a more systemic view in the integrated challenges of our society. And this also connects also to the next contribution to this webinar, which comes from the sister project TransformAr, because then at the same time, there's also a matter of looking at how much this has an impact on our economy. And sometimes we say, does this innovation really brings also the capacity of return? I mean, a quick return on the investment. Can we afford that? So I think that's also understanding, and this will be discussed by the next speaker about rapid cost benefit assessment from urban nature-based solutions. It is really important, and this will be given by Jan Koels, which he has, I mean, more than 20 years experience in advising, let's say, global organizations like the European Commission and the United Nations agencies on through, I mean, interdisciplinary projects. Jan currently leads, I mean, the transformative projects TransformAr, which is funded, as I said, by the Horizon Europe 2020, and is a coordinator at the University of Antwerp. And the project really aims, I mean, emerging environmental sciences and with governance and social economic sciences. So once again, we have, I mean, this important holistic systemic approach to addressing challenges of the water and water-related sectors. Jan, the floor is yours. Many thanks for being with us. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so indeed, I heard indeed like Arnout from Mechelen as the first speaker. He looked for ChatGPT, and indeed, smart cities often refers to IT aspects, right? Also, in my own city in Antwerp, that used to be some years ago only about IT. But smart cities nowadays is indeed more broader and more holistic, and you need, of course, like data. But it's also like smart organization and governance. I think that was also indicated. So my presentation is on behalf of TransformAr, indeed, one of the Green Deal projects, and which also ARSINOE is. So we are the sister project, let's say. All right. So we have basically like 7 demonstrators, and not all of them are cities in a way. So we have a city in Finland, Lappeenranta, and then Egaleo is in Greece. The rest is basically like a variety of cases. But smart cities and smart adaptation basically is a bit similar in a way. So the adaptation mission in Europe, they focus on basically on smart cities and smart regions, and implementing it in a way that it accelerates and upscales, because often like adaptation efforts are going too slow, and some cities are of course more advanced than others. But in general, I would like to focus on the aspect of nature-based solution, because that seems like difficult in most cities. Many cities, there is like a proven benefit basically of nature-based solutions, often that targets in first instance flood risk reduction, but basically they have like a lot of benefits as is commonly known. There are several reports that say there's like an economic case for investment in nature-based solutions. So in that way, you also wonder why are people not going ahead? There is like often a substantial reduction in cost if you disconnect the runoff from your sewer system. So there's a lot of positive benefits basically, but there is a lot of concerns as well. Like nature-based solutions are often found to be like administratively complex. So people basically have difficulty in engaging, like placing a sensor or building a street somehow is found more easy. And that's why what we try to do also in Laperante to lift some of the barriers in a way to do like for smart governments, but also like smart implementation. And while a lot of good practices commonly are available in various cases, and so if you look at one particular city, then sometimes it also gets like a bit more difficult, because then you realize indeed that all right, so there's like some innovations I thought were like straightforward in a way, for example, on nature-based solutions, and practice will be then more difficult. So so what we do then, so I present now like the case in Lappeenranta in Finland is like a city that is located next to a lake. Seems like the ideal natural city, but obviously they also have like a problem with floods and increasing flood risk, and the sewers that have been constructed are basically overloaded. So when there have been like a lot of nature-based solutions upstream, like in the forest nearby, but of course that doesn't protect the city sufficiently. So what we're now ending up with is like a nature-based solution, basically like a filter that a biofilter that we construct closer to the lake, and such that it absorbs basically the storm water that comes from the streets. But what is interesting here is that there is like this connection with water quality, because often like in Europe, flood risk management, also drought risk management, seems like disconnected from water quality. Somehow in practical management that is like not connected. So what we do here is in a way like an innovation in practice by connecting like water quality treatment with groundwater infiltration and groundwater recharge. And while technically that is also like very much proven, it's in practice also not really applied like a lot. So and especially then in Finland, we connected with the traditional part of smart cities in the way that we also want to measure basically the impact of this filter system, the impact on the capacity of the sewers, but also the water quality and quantity that infiltrates, and how much water goes in the lake. And then we think of two applications, basically. One is like a climate service system, the street AI that is called, that they have already in Lappeenranta. And then it combines basically all the technical data that they could use for their planning. But then also we develop like a citizen app that also provides like information to raise awareness with citizens, basically, and where they also could connect to the city for particular questions. So, and the next step, of course, is like a lot with these investments. A lot is claimed that if the cost and if the benefits are higher than the cost, then the evidence goes immediately. So that's also where we want to invest, like in a cost benefit approach. We want to make it like a rapid or more easy cost and benefit assessment, because we notice that for smaller investments, in a way, you don't do like these extensive studies and so. But on the other hand, you also want to get like proof on what basically are the benefits. So it basically is the cost, and how much do we have to account for maintenance. And like also this maintenance aspect, that's like a bit funny, like in many cities, if you ask them why are you not going ahead with nature-based solution, this maintenance cost comes up. Oh, it costs really too much to maintain that. And if you ask them, okay, how much does it cost, and there's basically no clear idea. So bringing then all the benefits and the various costs as far as possible, and to have like an holistic view, either qualitatively, either quantitatively. So that would be like good. And so here we intend to develop like business sheets or fact sheets that we have here, where you basically bring everything together in a fairly rapid way, such that, yeah, if you want to replicate and upscale, you not spend more time on the assessment than on the implementation itself. So, and then we move to the last part where tomorrow we have like our own webinar on governance, on adaptation governance, where yeah, organized by TransformAr. So in case of interest, and then you could still register for for specifically the governance aspects, which is also like a part of the small smart cities. I think that was it. Thanks for your attention.
Many thanks, Jan. Thanks a lot. Thanks for this interesting. I see that. I mean, all speakers that builds, each and every speaker builds a bridge with their contribution. And now I heard. By listening to you, the words of governance, the words about data, that represent, a very important aspect to consider in the management of the territories. When it goes, in particular, then to utilization of knowledge-based solutions, in which there are many components that might create competition, but at the same time, can allow us, to find solutions that are not the traditional ones in water management. They might be much more effective. And then, we jump, to the last presentation today is from the project Impetus, that will be given by Victor Estela Perez, who is a scientist in climate data in Lobelia Earth, and he has an extensive experience in research in the European climate project. And of course, he contributes to the Impetus project, particularly providing his experience and providing its knowledge on data and conducting coastal erosion analysis for the Catalonian coast. The title of this last presentation, then we have a panel discussion, is emblematic because it is using data for efficient governance at coastal cities. So we have, in a short sentence, a lot of challenges and a lot of opportunities. And I would like to ask Victor, to take the floor for the Impetus project and as the last speaker of this first round of the webinar today. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Andrea. My talk is going to focus on water, but water on a particular body of water, which is the ocean, and how the ocean data can contribute to the idea of smart cities. We all know that the majority of people lives nowadays in towns and cities, but it's a bit surprising that actually about 40% of the global population lives within 100 kilometers of the coast, including urban areas. And the number of people moving to these areas is growing fast. This coastal proximity offers numerous benefits, we all know, such as transportation, channels, food supply, energy resources. However, this closeness often leads to a number of environmental challenges like marine pollution, overfishing, and climate-driven issues. These issues threaten the urban population and also affects the blue economy and the health of marine ecosystems. Cities by the coast are the ones that will suffer the most severe impacts from climate change. They are at risk from sea level and storm surges, flooding, and other hazards, which is a big impact in a coastal city. However, integrating data ocean into urban planning is still a challenge, and in some cities, bureaucracies have drawn a clear line between the land and the sea. What I'm trying to show you in this presentation is a couple of examples in which Lobelia has been working, in which water-related data has become essential to improve urban and marine resilience. So one example that we're contributing to the Impetus project is the analysis on coastal erosion and how cities need to address this issue. In general, coastal cities need to take the dynamic edges of the coast, take into account for their urban planning. And the work we've developed in Lobelia as part of the Impetus project is based on SAR satellite data that allow us to monitor coastal erosion despite cloud conditions. Understanding the rates at which erosion is occurring in a municipality can help to make informed decisions from land use modifications, such as nourishment of the beach, to engage to improving or to understand any engineering solutions that can avoid the impacts of climate. The second example that I wanted to highlight is an example of a climate risk assessment that we performed for the ports of Banjul. So climate change is modifying the occurrence of hazards impacting the port's infrastructures. And to better understand the vulnerabilities that the port is exposed to, we need to improve the climate projections that we use to analyze what's going to happen in the future by using local data. And the fact of having accurate local ocean observations allow us more precision to represent these hazards in the future, and as a consequence, for the decision makers from the municipalities to plan accurate adaptation measures. Another aspect that we have analyzed in this project was how the future would affect to the mangrove forest near the port of Banjul. As you can see in the map, is just like next to Banjul. And this forest basically promotes climate adaptation benefits such as shoreline stabilization and flood control. And it also acts as a carbon sink, contributing to climate mitigation. So what we did is try to analyze how water salinity caused by extreme temperatures and drought can contribute significantly to mangrove reduction. And by using satellite monitoring of the forest extent, this allowed us to measure how the extent and the state of the mangrove forest was during the past. So as with these sort of examples, what you can see is that actually ocean data helps us to measure, monitor, and assess changes in the ocean, which also can contribute to make informed decisions to the cities in the face of adversities. And the idea of extending that sort of like idea of a smart city in the case of coastal cities into a smart coastal city by including ocean data can put policymakers in such a better position to understand risks and plan adaptation measure if they use both the city data and also ocean data. So thank you for your attention, and any questions will be welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Victor. Excellent presentation. Closing, the loop, around the topic of today. So now we start a panel discussion in which the experts, will let's say challenge one another in the discussion. About the topics that have been presented. So far, and we already see that. There are a number of questions coming from the audience. I was looking, at the first question, which is interesting, and because it's the idea what could be, the impact also of the size of the cities, against, the overall problem of climate change and water management. And there's a question that I think that this will be for our note. That is, what can smaller cities and towns with less resources learn from Mechelen?
We're not the biggest city. We're the 5th biggest city in Flanders. I don't even think the 5th biggest in Belgium. We are 80,000 inhabitants. So it's not always about scale. It's about building coalitions and finding partners. I think this is the role of the city, as we don't have to do everything ourselves, but we're the director. Yeah? We're the one as an orchestra seeing that everybody plays their role. And I think there it's not only about resources, and obviously there's we have good experience with European resources, but I think it's more about building coalition, getting together and having someone really driving this forward. You need a minimum without anything, but the minimum is vision and willingness with the board or the municipal council to move forward. I think this is the starting point. And if you have this, then resources, obviously more resources. I know this, we don't have enough staff, we don't have enough money, nobody has enough. But the first step is get the vision right, get all the noses in the same direction. I always say we're not with 25 people in the city working on climate, which is our climate team, but we're 800 people, because we need to get all the noses in this direction. And then all of a sudden you will see you will have big resources in the city and in the city's partners.
Yeah, so it means also that managing well water means also to then in the long run to try to also to minimize the resources that are needed for managing efficiently water, which is also another objective that we aims at achieving. And I would like to go for a bit to this issue of efficient governance of the coastal cities, because coastal cities represent a kind of boundaries between inland water, the ocean, right? And they are, let's say, in the middle of two problems or two challenges. Or let's say two domains, different domains of challenges that interact right on the coastal cities. Now, I would like to go back for a while, because you'll be speaking about data sharing, governance, just a bit of flavor about the matter. I'd like to ask to Victor, what do you see? As a need for new technologies that could be relevant, to tackle the impact of climate change on coastal cities? What do you see? What is your view in terms of what would be the most urgent technology to develop, or how we should deepen our research and innovation efforts for this?
To me, I think, a sort of effort. Well, I think there's two of them. On the one hand is to sort of try to understand somehow, or try to develop technologies that can let us to understand how past events impacted the city. So how past droughts, how past floodings, what were the extent of those floodings, and try to understand with those past events how the city, what happened to the city. And then also the second one would be monitoring, actually understanding or developing technologies that can give us more information on real time on how things are going, what we can expect. So by the time we can combine those two, like if we understand what happened in the past and we've seen a certain trend now in our city with the monitoring technologies, then we can say, like, oh, we should be careful because this happened in the past, this may happen now. So I think this probably would be my two main sort of, well, not technologies, but like knowledge or know-hows on how to invest in a, let's say, in a smart coastal city.
Smart coastal city. Many thanks. Now I'd like to ask to Jan, because I remember during his presentation, some point, there was an issue of land competition, because particularly when we live in a place like Europe, where there's a lot of, we have a lot of people living in this continent, intensive population is, the urbanization brings, a more intensity in the density of population in many areas of Europe, and then of course then competition for land. It's an important, quite a challenging issue. At the same time, we go to MBS, MBS many times requires land to be used for these purposes. But at the same time, I would like to ask Ian, there is an emerging challenge which is related to the matter that territories are in competition for water. How MBS can mitigate or tackle the problem of this emerging competition, the competition for land and the competition for water?
Yes, thank you, Andrea. My video seems to be disabled, but I can answer anyhow.
We can hear you.
the competition for land is basically the #1 reason bring up for not going further with nature-based solutions. And I think it is, well, there are many reasons behind in a way, yeah. But one reason is, of course, the investment on public land. Cities want to use the land they have in their own property to do investments on, because otherwise it becomes like complex in a way, yeah. Then you have to have another owner, and so you need to arrange another authorities or whatever. So that is basically one thing. So that's why we look both into like investments on public land. So what we do now with in Lappeenranta in Finland. But the other thing is where we also are doing like a choice experiment with citizens, that we are asking like 1,000 citizens in Finland, 1,000 in Norway, like under which conditions do you want to invest on nature-based solutions on your private land? Because on private land, there is, of course, a lot of opportunity, and a lot of the private land is flooded. And especially like in cities, there are like many gardens and open spaces and whatever and so on. But yeah, you cannot go investing directly yourself as a city. But obviously, there's a lot of potential. So it's a way here. How do we convince basically our citizens, and what are they willing and what are they interested? So, and then we have like this choice experiment where we basically ask the citizens, all right, so if you have like flood risk on your land, what would you be interested in? Like a green roof, like maybe an infiltration pond, or maybe you want to have like just a concrete reservoir, maybe you want to have like a pump. So we give not only like green, because that would be like a biased solution in a way. Yeah? So we give them various options what are like typical for like flood risk management in the area. In Norway and Finland, there's also like this trouble with ice and falling and injury because of ice. So that also makes them more aware of something. So there's like private land, public land, and but there's, yeah, I think it mainly comes down to what Arnout also was saying. If you have a vision, then you can find things to work. But if you don't want nature-based solutions, to say it bluntly, if you don't want nature-based solutions, you can easily find like excuses. Oh, this land is not in our property. Oh, there is like a sewer system there. There's like an internet cable there. We have like a lot of procedures. If we renovate a road, we need to have like a bike lane that is like 1.5 meters or something. We have the road that needs like this particular width. We need to have like a bus stop, and a bus stop, of course, needs to be like gray. So it's a lot of procedures and things, and so nature-based. Despite the general advocacy in Europe, it does not seem to be on top of the list for many sort of decisions. Yeah, that was a bit longer contribution, maybe.
Many thanks, Jan. So I think that, let's say that on the one hand, I mean, there are a lot of obstacles. I mean, in creating the ideal condition for expanding and implementing nature-based solutions in Europe. That might also touch, I mean, the problem of an appropriate legislation framework that might be not up to the point against, I mean, the needs of quickly finding and deploying solution. And but then at the same time, this, I mean, brings also to difficulties, because it means that we do not take action, and then the cost of no action, I mean, will be much more difficult, I mean, to pay back instead of engaging, I mean, the society in accepting new solution. But in this difficult game, this difficult group of actors and stakeholders that are, I mean, on a territory in which I mean, you might find cities, industrial settlements, rural environments, and so on. how can we have, support all what could be, the role that with utilities, water companies can give in terms of supporting, the achievement of what is smart society, and at the same time, looking at how to solve the challenge of the climate change. And this is, of course, it's a question for Gunnar.
Well, I can start maybe like the role of water utilities is in a way they have like a good image in most countries, right? So so if they give like examples, we care about the environment, we do like a circular economy, we treat our water, we also invest, we provide like fountains, we construct like parks or something. We see that sometimes in Belgium, they're like a small investments to do like fountains or small parks, or there's also one at the seaside in Belgium where they use it for infiltration of their treated water and some doing groundwater recharge. But if I can give an example of what we will discuss tomorrow in this webinar is basically what we have in Sardinia as the coastal contract. A coastal contract, what they have there is, so they have the challenge for adaptation is of course not the city there, but I think the coastal contract is a good way in a way because it brings people together. So they have like 20 parties or something, the municipality and companies and actors and fishermen and farmers and whatever sort of associations. But they come together and they agree on the tasks, they agree on a joint vision, they agree on who should be doing what and who should be paying what. And I think that is, I think, like a way forward. So if you also bring that together with drinking water companies, you could also see like an area, for example, like in Belgium, there's like groundwater abstraction for drinking water, but they're also suffering from drought, so they need to look for other resources. So if they could join up with like nature organizations, they could protect their headwater sources maybe more. And so are there like farmers that also are there that maybe can reduce their water intake if they get like compensation or something. So this sort of, I think, corporations in a way could work. Well, at least they work in Sardinia.
I can jump in just right there because a lot of our water supply companies do have cooperations with farmers out there on protecting water. And before this meeting, I was at the Department of Agriculture, where we have just the discussion going on how to, I'd say, heal the natural landscape water household. That's what we call it in German. We like these long words. And it's all about how do we bring together farmers, but also municipalities, water supply companies, and others as well, forestry certainly, to secure the water resources out there instead of having the strong runoff into the Black Sea via the Danube and through the Rhine and your countries to the North Sea from Bavaria. And that's a core topic here at the moment. I was pretty cheerful leaving at the break too early, not cheerful for leaving early, but that there were discussions going on that are more future orientated, I'd say, with the farmers than they've been before. But I'd also like to answer with the question on experience and data. I think what we can do with data is to speed up, to raise the pace of experience, because we don't have the experience on all the land cover changes we've done throughout the last few decades, what that does to the water cycle. And we're just learning from bad experiences generally on that, while data can help to run models and learn in virtual experience and then react faster. hopefully with the nature-based solutions as well as the necessary precautions on catastrophic conditions. I have one of our water utility managers who's a firefighter as well, and as a firefighter, he was in a condition lately where he said that area has never seen floods, maybe not even water at all, where he had to serve as a firefighter lately. And the whole community didn't understand how it worked. But the soils, the ground, the ground cover, tremendous rains, all these situations have changed. So it's an interlinkage of what we've done to the countryside and climate change on top now. That's what I think. And data as a quicker experience might help to just close that gap between lifetime experience and generations of experience to what is changing quickly.
If I can jump in there, I completely agree. And we need to bring this experience to the people, and then they will understand what we're doing. And then we're coming back to this nature-based solutions. I think data and the experience can help people imagine and understand what is happening, because there's a lot of work has to be done there. Because one of the questions was, how do you match this with live experiences? We have a lot of communication that we have to do with the people, and participation and co-creation to get this challenge, make this a societal challenge that is everybody's challenge and not only of some institutions in the government.
Thank you. I mean, a bit behind the scale, but I mean, it's almost a pity, I mean, to stop this webinar. I think that there's a lot of ideas, I mean, insights, I mean, that we have been thinking about, I mean, that's looking up of the water sector, I mean, the experience with it. And this brings also to my mind the matter that when we work, I mean, we say that water is a global challenge, which is true, because if you look at the global data, I mean, that's really scary. But at the same time, water challenges must be addressed locally. Is that really, yes, we have to think about the city, the territories at large, and reconnecting me to that we can do a lot of things with data. Say Gunnar for it comes into my mind the matter that maybe territories might be helped in establishing the twins, which they can better manage, and they also can select, I mean, the quality of, not only the quality of data that they might need for better planning in the future, the capacity of managing well the resources with a circular approach. So then in the end, concerning water, when I say water, then water means, I mean, being in with our foot in each and every shoes of different sectors. We really need to be to build a water smart economy and society, and this, I mean, requires us, I mean, really to look at all the possible solutions in a systemic approach. And I also like in the matter that we need, while looking at the cities and complexities of the challenge of the cities, and I mean the climate change impact and the water crisis at the same time, I really appreciate I mean the invite of thinking beyond the cities, because we are in the city and we think that this is the environment, there's nothing else. I mean, I would say there were cities, but then there's a world which is connected to the cities. This is also the reason for which I really also I mean, the contribution of Impetus about thinking about the coastal areas, because they are really in the middle of, it's a boundary. It is a boundary where we have to look, I mean, front and back, I mean, to our shoulders, and then having the capacity of looking at the overall ecosystem in a systemic way. We are 15 minutes, I mean, the schedule, but it was, I think, justified by the importance of the discussion. But I think that we have a number of other questions coming from the audience that will be addressed to the speakers shortly. And at the same time, I would like, I mean, really to sincerely thank you for this, I mean, extremely interesting and outstanding webinar today. And I do hope that it was interesting also for the participants, I mean, from social media, and who directly connected to the Zoom platform. So once again, many thanks. Thank you for your efforts in the project. Thank you for your efforts in your questions. Thanks a lot for having water at the center of your heart and your mind as well. And we are all working for a water society and addressing the challenge of this so precious resource. Once again, thank you so much, and see you the next time. Thanks a lot.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.